Here's a quarter. Go buy yourself some brain cells. Brad Morrison hurls the coin at Jerome Washington's feet, his voice echoing across PowerTech Motors' security gate. The homeless black man stands motionless, worn toolbox in hand, as workers flood toward the commotion. This street rat thinks he can fix our $2 million prototype engine. Brad waves his phone, filming every second of humiliation. What's next? You gonna perform heart surgery for a hot dog? The crowd erupts. More phones appear. The mockery spreads like wildfire. Jerome had approached security guard Miguel Santos with a simple request. I can fix it for a meal. 2 days without food, but his voice stayed steady, his dignity intact. Now he's surrounded by laughter, cameras, and cruelty. But Jerome doesn't pick up the quarter. Instead, he listens past the noise to the failing engine beyond the fence. The prototype bleeds $75,000 daily. Your turbocharger bearing is 0.2 millimeters off, Jerome says quietly. 6 hours until catastrophic failure. Have you ever witnessed a genius hiding behind hunger? The silence lasts exactly 3 seconds. Then Brad Morrison doubles over with laughter. Did you hear that? Engine whisperer over here. He turns to the growing crowd of PowerTech employees. Homeless guy's gonna save our Pentagon contract with his magical ears. The mockery hits Jerome like physical blows, but his weathered face remains calm. Behind the security fence, the massive PowerTech Motors facility sprawls across 40 acres of Detroit industrial landscape. This isn't just any automotive company. They manufacture military-grade engines worth millions, precision-engineered power plants that drive America's armored vehicles through desert storms and urban warfare. Right now, their most critical project sits dead in Testing Bay 7. The prototype V8 twin-turbo engine represents 2 years of development and $50 million in Pentagon contracts. It should be purring like a mechanical symphony, ready to power next-generation military vehicles. Instead, it's been silent for 6 days, defeated by a catastrophic turbocharger failure that stumped every expert they've thrown at it. Miguel Santos, the security guard, shifts uncomfortably. He's watched Jerome sleeping in the abandoned lot next door for weeks, always with that battered toolbox, always maintaining a quiet dignity despite his circumstances. Something about the man's technical knowledge bothers Miguel. Homeless people don't usually know bearing tolerances. Look at his clothes! Brad continues his performance, circling Jerome like a predator. When's the last time you showered, buddy? Think the Pentagon wants engines fixed by someone who smells like a dumpster? The crowd grows larger. Production workers pour out of the building, drawn by the spectacle. Union representatives arrive, defensive about any suggestion that outsiders might solve problems their certified technicians couldn't. Plant manager Patricia Lane appears at the main entrance, her expression darkening as she realizes what's happening. Jerome's stomach audibly growls, a hollow, desperate sound that cuts through the laughter. He hasn't eaten in 48 hours, hasn't had a real meal in over a week. His hands shake slightly from hunger, but his eyes remain focused on something beyond the gate, beyond the mockery, beyond the immediate humiliation. The facility behind the fence tells its own story of corporate desperation. Loading docks sit empty where truck after truck should be hauling finished engines to military bases across the country. The testing bay windows reveal expensive diagnostic equipment sitting idle, their screens dark, their million-dollar capabilities useless against a problem that's confounded the industry's best minds. Tell us more about our engine, Professor, Brad sneers, his phone capturing every angle. What else can your hobo wisdom teach us about precision engineering? Your diagnostic computers are reading cascade failures, Jerome says quietly, his voice barely audible over the crowd noise. But they're missing the root cause. Metal contamination in the oil system from improper bearing installation. The specificity of his answer creates an uncomfortable ripple through the crowd. These aren't vague guesses. Jerome is describing exact technical failures with the confidence of someone who's seen this problem before. Dr. Sarah Kim from Advanced Powertrain Solutions pushes through the crowd, her designer safety glasses reflecting the morning sun. Her team spent 3 weeks and $52,000 trying to resurrect that engine. They brought computer-controlled diagnostic equipment worth more than most people's houses, ran comprehensive analysis protocols that generated hundreds of pages of technical data. The suggestion that a homeless man could diagnose their failure with acoustic analysis from 200 yards away feels like professional insult. "Impossible," she declares loudly. "Our diagnostic equipment is state-of-the-art." We ran comprehensive computer analysis on every component. Jerome turns toward her voice, his eyes sad but not defeated. Computers can't hear bearing harmonics. They can't feel vibration patterns through metal housing. Sometimes the old ways work better than the new technology. Behind Dr. Kim, 2 other failed engineering teams cluster defensively. MotorTech Engineering's lead technician crosses his arms, still smarting from their spectacular failure 3 weeks ago. Their $45,000 diagnosis concluded the engine needed complete reconstruction, a recommendation that would have cost PowerTech another 6 months and millions in additional development. Precision Engine Dynamics' project manager stands nearby, equally defensive. Their $38,000 analysis declared the prototype beyond economical repair, essentially recommending PowerTech abandon 2 years of development and forfeit the Pentagon contract entirely. The crowd buzzes with uncertainty. Half are laughing at the absurdity, half are uncomfortable with the growing technical detail in Jerome's responses. This isn't random homeless rambling. He's speaking with the precision of someone who understands these engines at a fundamental level. Corporate executives begin appearing at upper-floor windows, drawn by reports of the disturbance below. Vice President Michael Hayes watches from the executive conference room, his face darkening as he realizes the spectacle is being filmed by dozens of phones. PowerTech's stock price has already dropped 18% this week due to the engine failure. Viral videos of homeless people mocking their engineering capabilities could trigger complete investor panic. Patricia Lane approaches the gate, her corporate instincts warring with desperate curiosity. PowerTech is hemorrhaging money like a severed artery. Every day of delay costs $75,000 in penalty fees to the Pentagon. The military contract represents 40% of their annual revenue. Losing it means massive layoffs, possible bankruptcy, the end of 1,200 careers including her own. The deadline looms like a corporate death sentence. 4 days to deliver a working prototype or lose the largest contract in company history. "What makes you think you know anything about our engines?" Patricia asks, her voice carrying across the gate with executive authority. Jerome reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a faded GM identification badge, the plastic cracked, but the photo clearly showing a younger version of himself in company coveralls. 23 years at GM Hamtramck Assembly, lead technician on high-performance powertrains. The badge changes everything. GM Hamtramck was legendary in Detroit automotive circles. The plant that built Corvette engines, Camaro powertrains, the precision manufacturing facility where America's most demanding performance engines came to life. Anyone who survived 23 years there possessed skills that couldn't be faked. Murmurs ripple through the crowd. The failed engineering teams exchange uncomfortable glances. GM Hamtramck technicians were industry legends, the people who could diagnose engine problems by sound alone, who understood powertrains at an intuitive level that no computer could replicate. Brad's confident mockery falters slightly, but he doubles down. "So what? The plant's been closed for months. You're unemployed, homeless, probably drinking away whatever skills you used to have. Show us this magical diagnostic ability," Dr. Kim challenges, her professional pride stinging from the implied criticism of computer diagnostics. "If you're so confident about our bearing problem, prove it." The crowd pressure mounts. Phones continue recording, capturing every detail for social media posterity. Someone starts a live stream that's already drawing thousands of viewers. Homeless man claims he can fix $1 million engine. Jerome looks past the crowd toward testing bay 7, his expression distant and focused. Through the industrial windows, the failed prototype sits surrounded by defeated diagnostic equipment like a mechanical corpse attended by electronic mourners. "Bring me close enough to hear the engine," Jerome says quietly. "Give me 30 minutes and 1 meal. If I'm wrong, call the police and have me arrested for trespassing." The audacity of the proposal sends shockwaves through the crowd. A homeless man challenging PhD engineers, offering to stake his freedom on diagnostic abilities no one believes he possesses. "This is insane," Brad protests, but his voice lacks its earlier confidence. "We're seriously considering letting a vagrant near a $2 million prototype." Union Representative Tony Kowalski steps forward, his face grim. "Our certified technicians couldn't fix that engine. You think some street person's gonna wave a magic wrench and make it work?" "Maybe we should listen," Miguel Santos says quietly, his first words since the confrontation began. "I've watched this man for weeks. He's not like other homeless people. He studies things, takes notes, keeps himself clean despite having nowhere to shower." Patricia Lane stares at Jerome through the security fence, weighing impossible options. Her company faces bankruptcy if this engine doesn't deliver. Traditional solutions have failed spectacularly. 3 engineering firms have taken their money and returned failure. Sometimes desperate times require desperate measures. The autumn wind carries distant mechanical sounds from the testing bay. Cooling fans still running despite the dead power plant they're meant to protect. Diagnostic computers humming uselessly. The subtle vibrations of a facility designed for precision manufacturing now operating in crisis mode. To most ears, it's meaningless mechanical noise. But Jerome tilts his head slightly, listening to harmonics and frequencies that tell stories only an expert would understand. His expression shifts almost imperceptibly, the look of someone hearing something significant that others miss entirely. "If I'm right," Jerome says softly, "all I want is that meal and a chance to show you what real diagnostics look like." The moment stretches between possibility and humiliation, between hope and mockery, between a hungry man's dignity and a crowd's entertainment. Corporate executives watch from windows above. Failed engineers cluster defensively. Union workers protect their territory. Phones capture every second for viral posterity. What happens next will determine whether genius gets its chance or whether prejudice wins another round. But first, you need to understand how Jerome Washington became the one man who could save PowerTech Motors from complete disaster. 10 months ago, Jerome Washington was somebody. Not just somebody. He was a legend at General Motors' Hamtramck assembly, the kind of technician other technicians called when impossible problems needed solving. For 23 years, he'd made his living listening to engines speak their mechanical secrets, translating the language of metal and motion into solutions that saved millions. His toolbox told the story of those decades. Worn handles are polished smooth by countless hours of precise work. Custom-modified instruments that fit problems no manufacturer anticipated. Diagnostic tools that seemed almost magical in their ability to find failures other equipment missed entirely. The Hamtramck plant was Jerome's cathedral, and he was its high priest of precision engineering. He'd started as a junior technician fresh out of high school, assigned to basic maintenance on the assembly line. But Jerome possessed something textbooks couldn't teach: an intuitive understanding of how machines thought. While other technicians relied on computer diagnostics, Jerome developed acoustic analysis techniques that could identify bearing wear by sound alone. "Engines don't lie," became his motto during those early years. "They tell you exactly what's wrong if you know how to listen." His breakthrough came during the 2015 Corvette Z06 development crisis. The high-performance engines were experiencing random power loss that stumped engineering teams from 3 continents. Computer diagnostics showed perfect operation even as engines failed on test tracks. GM was facing a $100 million recall disaster. Jerome solved it in 47 minutes. He'd noticed subtle harmonic variations in the supercharger bearing assemblies, frequency changes so slight that electronic sensors couldn't detect them. Using a technique he'd developed listening to thousands of engines, Jerome identified manufacturing tolerances that were technically correct but practically insufficient for extreme performance applications. His solution saved GM $3.1 million and became standard practice across the automotive industry. That success launched Jerome into an elite tier of automotive diagnostics. He became the technician other plants called for impossible problems. Ford secretly consulted him on their GT program. Chrysler flew him to Auburn Hills for Hellcat engine development. Even European manufacturers quietly sought his acoustic diagnostic methods. But Jerome's real pride was mentoring younger technicians. Over his career, he trained more than 200 mechanics, teaching them to hear what machines were saying beyond what computers reported. His diagnostic philosophy became Hamtramck legend. Good engines deserve good attention. Listen close enough, and they'll tell you everything you need to know. Dorothy Rivera, the plant's chief engineering consultant, recognized Jerome's unique abilities early. She'd spent 40 years in automotive development, working on everything from economy cars to Formula One prototypes. But Jerome's intuitive understanding of engine behavior impressed even her legendary expertise. Most technicians fix problems, she once told plant management. Jerome prevents them. He hears failures before they happen. Under Dorothy's mentorship, Jerome developed innovations that revolutionized engine maintenance. His bearing alignment system became industry standard. His acoustic diagnostic protocols were adopted by military contractors. His troubleshooting methodology was taught at automotive technical schools across the Midwest. Jerome's personal life reflected his professional success. A modest house in Hamtramck, paid off early through careful saving. His daughter Sarah followed his passion for engineering, earning her mechanical engineering degree with dreams of working alongside her father someday. Then came October 2023, and everything collapsed. General Motors announced Hamtramck assembly closure as part of electric vehicle restructuring. 1,400 jobs were eliminated overnight. 23 years of expertise suddenly worthless in a corporate spreadsheet designed around quarterly profits rather than human value. The plant closure hit Jerome like physical trauma. His identity, his purpose, his entire understanding of his place in the world, gone. At 58, with gray hair and hands that showed decades of honest work, he faced a job market that valued youth over experience, certificates over wisdom. Age discrimination revealed itself immediately. Younger managers looked at his resume and saw obsolete skills. Technology companies wanted computer expertise, not acoustic diagnostics. Even auto repair shops preferred recent graduates who wouldn't question modern diagnostic procedures. Month after month, rejection followed rejection. His savings dwindled, then disappeared. The house went first, sold to pay mounting bills, then the car, then everything that defined his middle-class stability. A good meal and honest work, that's all a man needs, became Jerome's survival motto as circumstances stripped away everything else. Engines don't care about your address, and talent doesn't require a paycheck. He kept his toolbox and his GM jacket, the last tangible connections to the person he'd been. The tools because they represented 40 years of accumulated knowledge. The jacket because it reminded him that expertise doesn't vanish just because circumstances change. Living on Detroit's streets taught Jerome new lessons about dignity and survival. He maintained his hygiene as much as possible, kept his technical knowledge sharp by studying problems at automotive facilities throughout the city. He refused handouts but would work for meals, preserving self-respect through labor even when that labor involved emptying trash or sweeping floors. At the abandoned lot next to PowerTech Motors, Jerome had been watching their engine crisis develop for weeks. He recognized the prototype as a modified version of military specifications he'd worked on during classified GM contracts. He knew the exact failure pattern from previous experience. Most importantly, he knew how to fix it. but knowing and proving are different things entirely. Patricia Chen's voice cuts through the crowd noise like a corporate guillotine. Fine. She stares at Jerome through the security fence, her executive composure cracking under weeks of pressure. 1 meal and 45 minutes. When you fail, we call the police and ban you permanently from this property. The crowd erupts in surprised murmurs. Corporate executives don't usually negotiate with homeless people in front of rolling cameras, but desperation makes people do extraordinary things. Jerome nods slowly, his dignity intact despite the humiliating circumstances. I need a real meal, though. Ham sandwich, chips, and Coke. Can't work properly on an empty stomach. Brad Morrison can't resist another jab. Look at Mr. Picky! Next, he'll want lobster and champagne. But his laughter sounds forced now, less confident than minutes ago. The GM badge changed something fundamental about this confrontation. Cafeteria meal approved, Patricia announces, her voice carrying across the facility grounds. If we're doing this circus, we're doing it right. Word spreads through power tech like wildfire. Production workers abandon their stations. Office staff crowd against windows. The testing bay becomes the center of unprecedented attention as 150 employees gather to witness either a miracle or a spectacular humiliation. Dr. Sarah Kim positions herself near the front, her engineering team clustering defensively nearby. Their failure stings worse knowing a homeless man claims he can succeed where they couldn't. Precision Engine Dynamics' project manager checks his phone nervously. If Jerome somehow succeeds, their professional reputations face serious damage. Union Representative Tony Kowalski arrives with a grim expression. Our certified technicians couldn't fix that engine, he announces loudly. You think some street person's gonna wave a magic wrench and make it work? The failed prototype sits in Testing Bay 7 like a mechanical corpse, surrounded by expensive diagnostic equipment. $2 million of precision engineering reduced to silent metal by a problem that stumped the industry's best minds. Computer monitors display cascading error codes. Diagnostic cables snake across the floor like electronic life support for a patient beyond saving. Jerome's hands shake slightly as Miguel Santos escorts him through the security gate. 48 hours without food affects coordination, but his eyes remain focused and alert. The crowd parts reluctantly, phones capturing every step of his journey toward either vindication or deeper humiliation. The cafeteria meal arrives on a paper plate, simple food that represents his first real nutrition in days. Jerome sits quietly on a nearby bench, eating the ham sandwich with deliberate slowness while listening to sounds carrying from the testing bay. His expression shifts subtly as he processes mechanical information others can't even detect. Best meal I've had in weeks, Jerome says softly, finishing the Coke. Now watch this engine sing. The testing bay doors open to reveal the prototype V8, surrounded by defeated diagnostic equipment. Thousands of dollars worth of computer analysis hardware sits idle, their screens dark after weeks of producing useless data. The engine itself looks pristine from the outside. Precision-machined aluminum and steel that should be purring with mechanical perfection. Instead, it's been silent for 6 days. Jerome approaches the prototype with reverent care, his weathered hands moving over the engine surface like a doctor examining a patient. The crowd presses against safety barriers, phones recording every movement. Corporate executives gather in the observation area above, their faces reflecting corporate desperation disguised as professional skepticism. Then the moment everyone's been waiting for arrives unexpectedly. Dorothy Rivera appears in the testing bay doorway. At 72, she moves slowly with her walker, but her presence transforms the entire atmosphere. Dorothy Rivera is automotive royalty, 45 years developing engines for Ford, consultant on projects from Formula One to military contracts. Her reputation spans decades and continents. I heard someone was disrespecting my best student, Dorothy announces, her voice carrying absolute authority despite her physical frailness. The crowd falls silent. Even Brad Morrison stops his running commentary. Dorothy Rivera's presence legitimizes everything. If she calls Jerome her student, then his credentials are beyond question. Jerome's face lights up with genuine joy for the first time since this ordeal began. "Miss Dorothy? What are you doing here?" "Saw the news coverage," she replies, positioning herself where she can observe clearly. "Thought my star pupil might need some moral support." Her words ripple through the assembled crowd like validation from automotive heaven. The failed engineering teams exchange uncomfortable glances. If Dorothy Rivera trained Jerome Washington, then his diagnostic abilities are probably legitimate. Patricia Lane realizes the stakes just escalated beyond simple corporate problem-solving. With Dorothy Rivera watching and dozens of phone recordings, this demonstration could make or break PowerTech's reputation industry-wide. The psychological warfare intensifies. Brad Morrison hovers nearby, providing distracting commentary designed to undermine Jerome's concentration. Failed technicians offer unsolicited advice and warnings. Pentagon Liaison Officer Colonel Martinez checks his watch impatiently, muttering about contract cancellations and wasted time. Overhead screens display countdown timers: 45 minutes, 44:59, 44:58. Jerome ignores the chaos, focusing entirely on the silent engine. He removes his faded GM jacket, revealing scarred but steady hands that tell stories of decades working with precision machinery. His first action surprises everyone. Instead of rushing toward the engine, he systematically organizes the scattered tools and components left by previous repair teams. "Diagnostic computers won't help here," Jerome explains to Dorothy while clearing the workspace. "This problem requires the old-school approach." He pulls a worn stethoscope from his toolbox, not medical equipment, but a mechanical diagnostic tool designed for listening to engine internals. Placing the instrument against various points on the engine block, Jerome closes his eyes and listens with complete concentration. The crowd grows restless. 20 minutes pass with no obvious progress visible to untrained observers. Some employees begin drifting away, assuming failure. Pentagon Colonel Martinez threatens to leave if no results appear soon. But Dorothy Rivera watches with growing anticipation. She recognizes Jerome's methodology from their years working together at GM. This isn't random troubleshooting, it's systematic acoustic analysis that can identify problems computer diagnostics miss entirely. "There it is," Jerome suddenly announces, his voice carrying quiet confidence. "Turbocharger bearing race installed backwards. Classic mistake when repair teams rush the job." Dr. Sarah Kim steps forward defensively. "Impossible. Our team followed exact installation procedures." Jerome looks up from his stethoscope, his expression sad but not accusatory. "Ma'am, with respect, computers can't hear bearing harmonics. They can't detect the subtle vibration patterns that indicate improper installation. Sometimes the old ways work better than new technology." He begins removing the turbocharger housing with practiced efficiency, his movements precise despite obvious hunger-related weakness. The crowd presses closer, watching him work with tools that seem almost magical in their specificity for problems no manufacturer anticipated. Within minutes, Jerome exposes the turbocharger's internal components. He lifts out a bearing race and holds it up for everyone to see. "Backwards installation," he announces calmly. "Metal shavings contaminate the oil system. That's why your computers couldn't diagnose the problem. They were reading secondary failures, not the root cause." The failed engineering team's faces show recognition of their fundamental oversight. 15 minutes remaining on the countdown clock. First revelation: diagnostic mastery. With 15 minutes remaining, Jerome holds the contaminated bearing race up to the overhead lights. Metal particles glitter like deadly confetti embedded in what should be pristine lubricant. "See these shavings?" Jerome's voice carries clearly across the silent testing bay. "When you install a bearing race backwards, the load distribution reverses. Instead of smooth rotation, you get metal-on-metal grinding that computers read as normal operational variance. Dr. Sarah Kim pushes through the crowd, her professional pride demanding closer examination. She stares at the bearing assembly with growing horror as the evidence becomes undeniable. 3 weeks of computer analysis, $52,000 in diagnostic fees, and her team missed something this fundamental. Our installation followed manufacturer specifications exactly, she protests weakly. Jerome's response carries no judgment, only patient explanation. Ma'am, specifications assume perfect conditions, but when you're working under Pentagon deadline pressure, sometimes assembly teams rush critical steps. This bearing went in backwards during your repair attempt 3 weeks ago. The crowd buzzes with uncomfortable recognition. Everyone remembers the frantic repair schedule, the overtime shifts, the pressure to restore the engine quickly. Under that stress, a backwards bearing race becomes entirely plausible. Dorothy Rivera nods approvingly from her position near the observation window. This is the technique that made Jerome legendary at GM, she explains to nearby executives. Acoustic diagnosis can identify problems that electronic sensors completely miss. Jerome continues his explanation while cleaning metal contamination from the bearing housing. Computers measure what they're programmed to detect, but engines communicate through vibration, harmonics, thermal patterns that require human interpretation. Listen. He places his mechanical stethoscope against the engine block in 3 different locations, his eyes closed in concentration. Main bearing vibration normal, valve train harmonics are perfect. But here, he moves the instrument to the turbocharger mounting point. Irregular frequency pattern indicating asymmetrical load distribution. The technical detail silences skeptics who expected vague, homeless rambling. Jerome speaks with the precision of someone who understands these engines at a molecular level. His diagnostic methodology follows logical progression that even failed engineering teams can recognize as legitimate. Pentagon Colonel Martinez steps closer, his earlier impatience replaced by professional interest. Military contracts demand this level of systematic problem-solving, and Jerome's approach mirrors field diagnostic protocols used by combat engineers. Motortech Engineering's lead technician abandons his defensive posture, instead taking detailed notes on Jerome's acoustic analysis technique. His team's $45,000 failure suddenly makes sense. They relied entirely on computer diagnostics that couldn't detect this specific type of installation error. We tested bearing alignment using laser measurement, the technician admits reluctantly. Everything showed tolerance. Jerome looks up from his work, his expression understanding rather than condescending. Laser measures static position perfectly, but it can't detect dynamic load distribution during operation. That's where acoustic analysis becomes essential. He demonstrates the frequency difference by tapping the bearing housing before and after proper installation. The subtle change in harmonic resonance is barely audible to untrained ears, but Jerome's explanation makes the distinction clear to professional observers. Second revelation: innovation under pressure. Standard repair requires $18,000 in replacement parts, Jerome announces, studying the contaminated components. Minimum 2-week delivery from the manufacturer. Patricia Chen's face goes pale. 2 weeks means missing the Pentagon deadline completely, forfeiting the $50 million contract, and facing potential bankruptcy. However, Jerome continues, his voice carrying quiet confidence, you don't need new parts. You need the right technique. He begins reversing the bearing race installation using precision measurement tools from his worn toolbox. Each instrument shows decades of careful maintenance, custom modifications that solve problems no manufacturer anticipated. The crowd watches in fascination as Jerome creates specialized cleaning solutions from available shop materials. Industrial degreaser mixed with specific solvents in proportions that suggest extensive experience with contamination removal. How do you know those ratios? Dr. Kim asks, her earlier defensiveness replaced by professional curiosity. 23 years of field repairs, Jerome replies while flushing the oil system. You learn what works through trial and error, then you never forget the combinations that save engines. He modifies standard gaskets using precise knife work, creating custom seals that will outperform original factory specifications. His hands move with practiced efficiency despite obvious hunger-related weakness, each cut following patterns developed through decades of improvised repairs. Metal doesn't lie about stress points, Jerome explains while working. Trust the engineering principles, not the parts catalog. The bearing race slides into proper position with a subtle click that sounds different from its previous installation. Several technicians lean forward, recognizing the acoustic change even without understanding its significance. Jerome demonstrates stress calculations on the testing bay's whiteboard, showing how reversed bearing loads create cascade failures throughout the turbocharger assembly. His mathematical explanation proves that the field repair will actually exceed original factory specifications for durability and performance. Union Representative Tony Kowalski watches with growing amazement as Jerome's improvised solutions demonstrate innovative thinking that certified technicians missed entirely. "Where'd you learn to modify gaskets like that?" he asks. "Necessity," Jerome responds simply. GM plant operated 24/7. Couldn't always wait for replacement parts during critical production runs. You learn to make what you need from what you have. Precision Engine Dynamics project manager places urgent calls to his office, requesting immediate consultation on other difficult projects. If Jerome's field repair methodology works here, it could revolutionize their approach to similar problems. Third revelation: systems integration mastery. With 25 minutes elapsed, Jerome moves beyond mechanical repair into sophisticated engine management programming. The prototype's control systems require recalibration after turbocharger restoration, but previous teams attempted this using standard diagnostic protocols. "Engine's like an orchestra," Jerome explains while accessing the prototype's proprietary software. "Fix one instrument, you gotta return the whole ensemble." His fingers move across the diagnostic keyboard with surprising confidence for someone who's been homeless for months. The engine management interface responds to commands that reveal intimate knowledge of military-grade control systems. "How do you know this software?" Colonel Martinez demands his security instincts triggered by civilian access to classified programming protocols. Jerome looks up calmly. "Worked on similar systems during GM's military contract development. Same underlying architecture, different interface design." He begins recalibrating 6 interconnected subsystems from memory: fuel injection timing, boost pressure curves, cooling system parameters, exhaust gas recirculation, ignition advance mapping, and transmission integration protocols. Each adjustment follows a logical sequence that demonstrates comprehensive understanding of how these systems interact. 23 years of V8 development teaches you to think like the engine thinks, Jerome continues his work. Every system affects every other system. Change one parameter, you have to compensate throughout the entire control matrix. Dorothy Rivera explains to fascinated observers, Jerome developed this holistic approach at GM. Instead of fixing individual problems, he optimizes entire powertrains as integrated systems. The engine management computer begins displaying improved diagnostic readings as Jerome's calibrations take effect. Error codes disappear systematically as each subsystem achieves proper operational harmony with its neighbors. Corporate executives gather in the observation area, watching Jerome work with technology that cost their company millions to license. His casual competence with sophisticated programming suggests expertise that extends far beyond basic mechanical repair. Fuel efficiency should improve 12% over original specifications, Jerome predicts while finalizing his programming adjustments. Power output will exceed design targets by approximately 40 horsepower. Durability projections indicate 300% improvement over previous prototype failures. The technical precision of his predictions astounds professional observers. These aren't hopeful estimates. Jerome speaks with the confidence of someone who's performed this exact optimization hundreds of times. Pentagon Colonel Martinez takes detailed notes on Jerome's methodology, recognizing innovations that could benefit military engine development across multiple programs. The field repair techniques Jerome demonstrates could save the military millions in parts costs and deployment delays. The technical triumph. With 5 minutes remaining on the countdown clock, Jerome steps back from the completed repair. The engine sits silent but somehow different, aligned, balanced, optimized in ways that weren't visible during previous repair attempts. "Ready for the startup sequence," Jerome announces quietly. The crowd presses against safety barriers as Patricia Lane approaches the engine controls. Weeks of failure have created superstitious dread around this prototype. 3 engineering teams couldn't make it run properly, and Jerome's confidence seems almost supernatural under the circumstances. Dorothy Rivera positions her walker closer to the engine. Her legendary experience allows her to hear subtleties that escape other observers. When Jerome successfully starts this engine, she wants to witness the acoustic signature of properly executed engineering. The startup key turns. The V8 engine roars to life with perfect harmonic resonance. No grinding, no irregular vibration, no computer error codes. The turbocharger spools up smoothly through its entire operational range, producing the mechanical symphony that $2 million of precision engineering was designed to create. Diagnostic computers display solid green status across all monitoring systems. Engine temperature remains optimal. Oil pressure holds steady. Fuel efficiency exceeds specifications. The crowd erupts in spontaneous applause. Jerome wipes his hands on a shop rag, puts his faded GM jacket back on with quiet dignity, and turns to Dorothy Rivera with a slight smile. "Just like riding a bicycle," he says softly. "Some things you never forget." The engine's perfect harmonic resonance fills Testing Bay 7 like a mechanical prayer answered. But Pentagon Colonel Martinez isn't satisfied with idle perfection. He demands proof under fire. "Impressive startup," the colonel announces, his voice cutting through the crowd's celebration. "But our armored vehicles don't cruise around parking lots. They operate under combat conditions. The stakes explode beyond simple repair validation." Colonel Martinez produces a tablet displaying military stress test protocols that would challenge even factory-fresh engines. Full Pentagon specification trial, maximum RPM for 10 minutes, simulated combat load, complete durability analysis. If this engine fails any parameter, Mr. Washington faces federal fraud charges for misrepresenting capabilities to military contractors. Jerome's calm acceptance of these impossible terms sends shockwaves through the assembled crowd. Patricia Chen's face goes white as she realizes her company's fate now depends entirely on a homeless man's confidence in his repair work. "If the engine succeeds," Colonel Martinez continues, "immediate $10,000 payment plus guaranteed consultation consideration for future Pentagon projects. The testing bay transforms into a pressure cooker of corporate desperation and military precision. Dynamometer equipment worth more than most people's houses connects to the prototype engine. Diagnostic computers prepare to measure power output, thermal efficiency, vibration analysis, and durability projections under simulated battlefield conditions. 200 witnesses press against safety barriers as the ultimate test begins. Jerome stands beside Dorothy Rivera, his weathered hands steady despite the magnitude of pressure focused on his repair work. "Miss Dorothy, remember that Corvette Z06 crisis back in 2015? When you saved GM $100 million in recalls?" Dorothy smiles despite the tension. "How could I forget?" The same principle applies here. Listen for the harmony. The dynamometer engages with mechanical authority that reverberates through the concrete floor. The V8 engine responds to increasing load with smooth power delivery that transforms skeptical murmurs into focused attention. 750 horsepower, 780 horsepower, 825 horsepower. The readings climb steadily past original design specifications. Jerome's repair work isn't just fixing the engine, it's optimizing performance beyond factory intentions. Dr. Sarah Kim stares at diagnostic displays with growing amazement. This is impossible. Our computer models predicted maximum sustainable output at 780 horsepower. Computer models assume perfect factory conditions, Jerome responds calmly, watching engine temperatures remain optimal despite extreme stress testing. Field repairs often improve on original design when you understand load distribution better than the original engineers. 847 horsepower appears on the dynamometer readout, 47 horsepower beyond design specifications. The engine maintains this output for the full 10-minute stress test without any sign of mechanical distress. Oil pressure holds steady. Coolant temperature stays within normal parameters. Turbocharger boost pressure remains consistent across the entire RPM range. Corporate executives watch from the observation area with expressions mixing relief and disbelief. Weeks of corporate panic dissolve into recognition that their $50 million Pentagon contract is not only saved, but enhanced by performance improvements they never imagined possible. Pentagon Colonel Martinez runs his independent verification protocol, 73 separate measurement points that must meet military specifications for armored vehicle deployment. Each parameter not only passes but exceeds requirements by substantial margins. Fuel efficiency 12.3% above specification, the colonel announces, reading from his tablet. Durability projections indicate operational life 3 times longer than previous prototypes. The crowd's reaction shifts from amazement to something approaching reverence. Jerome hasn't just repaired a broken engine, he's transformed it into something superior to its original design. But the ultimate validation comes from Dorothy Rivera. The automotive legend approaches the running engine with her mechanical stethoscope, listening to harmonics only decades of experience can interpret. Her expression transforms as she recognizes acoustic signatures that represent engineering perfection. In 45 years of engine development, Dorothy announces to the assembled crowd, I've heard 5 engines achieve this level of harmonic balance. Jerome just created the 6th. She embraces Jerome publicly, her voice carrying across the testing bay with absolute authority. I'm so proud of you, son. This is what happens when true expertise meets opportunity. The spontaneous applause that follows isn't polite corporate recognition. It's genuine admiration for witnessed excellence. Union workers chant Jerome's name. Failed engineering teams line up to shake his hand respectfully. News photographers capture emotional reactions throughout the crowd. Jerome accepts the recognition with quiet dignity, his response revealing character forged by hardship but not broken by circumstances. I told you I could fix it for a meal. Now I've earned much more than that. He packs his tools methodically, no rushed celebration despite the magnitude of his achievement. Good engines deserve good attention. That's all I ever wanted to give. Brad Morrison stands frozen in the background, his earlier mockery now documented cruelty preserved forever on dozens of phones. His confident superiority has transformed into unemployable humiliation as corporate executives notice his inappropriate behavior during crisis resolution. The viral moment crystallizes as someone's live stream reaches 50,000 viewers watching in real time. Comments flood in. This man is a legend. Never judge a hungry genius. Give this hero everything he deserves. National automotive magazines call for interviews. Industry representatives exchange business cards with Jerome. The Pentagon contract is officially approved on the spot. But the real transformation isn't corporate or financial. It's the restoration of human dignity through demonstrated excellence. Jerome Washington just proved that expertise transcends circumstances, and genius can emerge from the most unexpected places. Patricia Lane doesn't waste time with corporate bureaucracy. Standing beside the purring engine that Jerome just transformed from expensive failure into military-grade perfection, she makes an offer that changes everything. Chief engine diagnostician position, $95,000 per year, Full benefits, 15,000 signing bonus. Her voice carries across the testing bay with executive authority. Company housing during transition, health care coverage including dental and mental health support. She pauses, adding a personal touch that acknowledges Jerome's journey. Free meals in our executive cafeteria for life. The crowd erupts in cheers, but competing offers follow immediately. Pentagon Colonel Martinez steps forward with his tablet. Mr. Washington, the Department of Defense offers an exclusive consulting contract worth $250,000 annually. Your diagnostic methodology could revolutionize military engine maintenance. Dr. Sarah Kim approaches respectfully, her earlier defensiveness replaced by professional admiration. Ford Motor Company authorized me to offer $120,000 plus relocation assistance. We need your expertise on our Formula One turbo development program. Mercedes-AMG's representative, who'd been observing quietly from the crowd, produces business cards. Stuttgart requests consultation on our hypercar project. Whatever Ford offered will exceed by 20%. The transformation feels surreal. Hours ago, Jerome was begging for a meal. Now, automotive giants compete for his expertise while cameras capture every moment of corporate redemption. But the most meaningful validation comes through a buzzing phone. Jerome's daughter Sarah calls during the celebration, her voice breaking with emotion. Dad, I just saw the live stream. I had no idea about your situation. I'm so sorry I lost faith. 20 months of estrangement dissolve in seconds. Sarah works as a mechanical engineer at Ford, ironically making her one of the colleagues now competing to hire her father. I want to work with you again, she whispers through tears, like we always planned. The reunion dinner gets scheduled immediately once Jerome secures his apartment. Community impact spreads beyond personal restoration. PowerTech establishes a $50,000 fund for displaced automotive workers in Jerome's honor. The local homeless shelter receives additional donations as Jerome's story inspires corporate social responsibility. Miguel Santos, the security guard who showed initial kindness, gets promoted to Jerome's assistant. He was kind when others weren't, Jerome explains simply. Kindness deserves reward. Jerome plans to establish scholarships for displaced manufacturing workers, ensuring his experience helps others avoid similar hardship. The symbolic victory extends beyond individual success. It represents hope for everyone society overlooks, proof that expertise persists despite circumstances, and validation that human dignity can survive any challenge. Dorothy Rivera watches the celebration with satisfaction. Her best student just proved that true engineering excellence transcends corporate titles, fancy offices, and social status. Talent always finds a way to surface. Brad Morrison's social media destruction begins within hours. His original mockery video explodes across platforms with devastating speed. 4.2 million views in 48 hours. Climbing relentlessly as automotive forums, engineering groups, and social justice accounts share the footage. The comments section becomes a digital graveyard for his reputation. Imagine mocking a hungry genius. This man just ended his own career on camera. How do you humiliate someone fixing million-dollar engines for a sandwich? Brad frantically attempts damage control, deleting his posts, but screenshots preserve everything. His LinkedIn profile gets flooded with professional criticism. His dating app photos now include frames from the viral humiliation video. Employers Google his name and find documented cruelty as the top search result. The ironic reversal completes itself when Brad applies unsuccessfully to automotive shops, where Jerome now serves as respected consultant. Shop managers recognize his name immediately, not for qualifications, but for viral infamy. PowerTech's HR investigation reveals Brad's pattern of discriminatory behavior extends far beyond Jerome's humiliation. Security footage shows months of inappropriate comments toward minority employees, documented harassment that corporate liability lawyers classify as lawsuit-worthy discrimination. His termination comes with zero severance due to conduct policy violations. The viral video provides such clear documentation of hostile workplace behavior that PowerTech's legal team considers it protecting the company from discrimination lawsuits. Creating a hostile work environment and damaging corporate reputation during crisis resolution, reads his dismissal letter. The failed engineering teams face their own professional reckoning. Social media exposes their combined $135,000 in charges for failed diagnostics that a homeless man solved in 45 minutes. Advanced powertrain solutions, motor tech engineering, and precision engine dynamics face client revolt as other companies question previous work quality. PowerTech demands full refunds plus damages for contract jeopardy. When the teams resist, legal action follows with viral video evidence supporting gross professional incompetence claims. Their industry reputation suffers irreparable damage from contrast with Jerome's field repair success. Other automotive clients launch investigations into previous projects, discovering patterns of overdiagnosis and unnecessary part replacement that suggest systematic billing fraud. 3 major lawsuits result from PowerTech's case, inspiring broader scrutiny. The engineering firm's downfall accelerates as social media amplifies their failure. Industry publications run exposés on diagnostic incompetence, using their PowerTech failure as cautionary tale about over-reliance on computer analysis without fundamental understanding. Dr. Sarah Kim's career survives through professional humility. She publicly acknowledges Jerome's superior methodology, requests training opportunities, and transforms her team's diagnostic approach. Her gracious acceptance of correction saves her reputation while her colleagues face professional exile. The systematic justice extends industry-wide. Automotive companies hastily review hiring practices for experienced displaced workers. Age and appearance discrimination becomes a major talking point in trade publications as corporations realize they're discarding valuable expertise based on superficial judgments. Jerome's story becomes mandatory case study in corporate bias training programs. His photo appears in diversity seminars alongside text reading, "Expertise doesn't wear suits. Talent doesn't require addresses. Never judge capability by circumstances." The Detroit automotive community embraces Jerome as a symbol of overlooked potential. Other homeless individuals report increased opportunities and respectful treatment as employers become conscious of hidden talent existing outside traditional hiring channels. PowerTech transforms shame into positive social impact, establishing a $500,000 fund for displaced automotive workers. Additional donations to Detroit Homeless Services specifically target skilled workers experiencing temporary housing insecurity. The ultimate irony crystallizes when Brad Morrison drives past PowerTech's entrance each morning, watching Jerome's success story unfold daily. The food truck bearing Jerome's name serves breakfast to workers Brad once supervised. The parking spot where Brad filmed his mockery now reserves space for Jerome's company vehicle. Life delivers its own justice. The mocker becomes forgotten, while the mocked becomes mentor. Brad's viral infamy serves as a permanent reminder that cruelty has consequences, while Jerome's triumph proves that dignity and competence eventually defeat prejudice. The digital age ensures Brad's humiliation remains searchable forever, while Jerome's expertise builds a legacy worth remembering. Sometimes karma comes with perfect timing and maximum impact. 1 year later, Jerome Washington supervises PowerTech's revolutionary apprenticeship program for displaced automotive workers. His daughter Sarah works alongside him as co-director, finally proud to share her father's legacy. Every morning, Jerome's Engine Cafe food truck serves breakfast to workers with the motto painted boldly on its side: "Good food, good work, good people." The prototype V8 engine still purrs flawlessly in Pentagon vehicles worldwide. Jerome's innovations now standard across military contracts. Brad Morrison's viral video plays in corporate bias training sessions, ensuring his cruelty becomes an eternal lesson in what never to do. Talent doesn't wear suits, and genius doesn't require an address. Jerome's hunger led to healing, proving that sometimes the person who can change everything is asking for nothing more than a chance and a meal. If this story moved you, share it with someone who's been underestimated. Comment below. Have you ever been judged by your circumstances instead of your capabilities? And if you made it this far, there's a detail only sharp-eyed viewers noticed at minute 2:15 that predicted Jerome's success. Subscribe for stories proving potential exists in unexpected places, because the expert you need might be the one society overlooks.
At Black Voices Uncut, we don't polish away the pain or water down the message. We tell it like it is because the truth deserves nothing less. If today's story spoke to you, click like, join the conversation in the comments, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next Uncut Voice.